What up, y'all? It's the Robot Watcher. Grab your binoculars, and I'm back with another video. And it's finally time. We're getting close to the draft. Combine coming up. This is before the combine, but we're gonna do a rankings video, and probably the most popular position for especially the Carolina Panthers, but maybe in this draft, the edge position. So let's go ahead and get into it. 1 through 10, and I'll have a couple honorable mentions. Let's go. Now, at my edge 10, it's a guy I'm not necessarily a fan of, but the ceiling is high enough to where I have to put him at this last spot. It was a real argument in my head between him and Jordan Burch. But Mykel Williams, junior edge rusher slash defensive end, 3-4 defensive end. I don't know wherever you want to play him. Out of Georgia, he's 6'5", 265. I could see him coming in heavier than that, maybe 270, 275. Maybe a little lighter. Super duper long arms. He is a true junior. He only played 3 years at Georgia. I think he's 20 years old right now. But yeah, I know a lot of Georgia guys get that tag of they're not necessarily going to be productive at Georgia, but get them into the NFL, they're going to show up, be a lot better. I don't necessarily see it as much with Mykel Williams. I just don't see the consistent wins enough. He did battle an ankle injury this year, so that is kind of that. But then the year before, I didn't see much wins. When he played this year, I didn't see enough wins to really see that ceiling that he has. As a dominant edge one pass rusher for me to be a high first round pick. I didn't see it. I didn't necessarily see the moves enough for me. It wasn't enough flashes to be like, you know what, you get that guy in there. Like Trayvon Walker was a guy I was kind of cool with. I was like, all right, I'd get them taking him at the first pick when he came out. But I didn't see enough flashes from Mykel Williams to be able to say, yeah, this is one of those Georgia guys that you take him, put him in the NFL, he's going to be great. But still probably going to be an elite run defender at the next level. At the worst, you're going to get a great run defender and maybe a cleanup guy as a pass rusher. And maybe he can develop more into an edge too, Maybe end up being like a Clowney guy at the next level. So, good player, though. I just don't think I see the hype of him being edge 5 or up in this class or being taken as the top 15, top 10 of this draft. That's just not for me personally. But let's get into the next guy. And also, by the way, I won't have any film for these SEC guys because it's going to get demonetized. That's only like 3 guys on this list. The other 7 I got the tape for. But let's get into the next one. Now, these next 2 guys, they just blue collar workers. Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. He's 6'5", 260. Not as long as arms as Mykel Williams, but you can definitely see the build is similar there. Still long arms. He's going to be my edge 9. So with Jack Sawyer, this to me is like your great edge 2. This is your, not necessarily saying playstyle wise, but this is your Alex Highsmith. This is maybe your Trey Henderson. What's the other guy that played for the Bengals also? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Whatever. Maybe he can morph into your Max Crosby or your Aiden Hutchinson. I don't see him being that much of a great player, but I could see that coming from Ohio State, coming out of that Big Ten system. Really good pass rusher, has a plethora of pass rush moves, really polished guy. He's a 4-year senior. Going to be good against the run, maybe even great against the run. Just a really high floor, not necessarily to the highest of ceiling, but a high floor player that's going to be a really good, I think you're going to be a good edge 2 coming in. I think if he's your second pass rush, like if you're the Browns, somebody like that, or even if you're like the Ravens and you just need pass rush and you're already a playoff team, adding Jack Sawyer is going to be chef's kiss. Adding him to the Eagles, chef's kiss. Guys like that. I don't think you're a team like Carolina or somebody that like, hey, you need an edge rusher, you need a number 1 dominant guy, and you're looking at Jack Sawyer in the first round. I don't think that's for you. Back half of the first round into the second, early third, back half of the first. That's his range for Jack Sawyer. Really high floor player. I think he'll be good at the next level. A good contributor to your team. Good contributor to your pass rush. Get him next to a guy that's a number 1. Like, if he goes to Detroit, chef's kiss. So, yeah, let's get into the next guy. JT Tuimoloau. Basically is a clone of Jack Sawyer. A little bit bigger, more athletic. That's what he is. Out of Ohio State, 6'5", 269. Could be a little more because these guys do carry a lot of weight. Like, they look like they're 260, 270 when you're watching them on tape. Unlike other guys who be like listed at 250 and then they come in at 243 or something. JT Tuimoloau, everything I said about Jack Sawyer, it's the exact same. He's going to be your 4-year senior out of Ohio State. Really good run defender, maybe even great. Really polished pass rusher, has a lot of pass rush moves in his bag. We know Ohio State, they put out pass rushers with that defensive line coach that they have there. It's their thing. But because of the athleticism that he has, I think he has a much higher ceiling than somebody like Jack Sawyer, but a lower floor. Not necessarily like a boom or bust guy, because his floor is still pretty high. Like, if you're going to put Jack Sawyer's floor at 75, JT Tuimoloau's floor is at 70, 68, something like that. But if Jack Sawyer's ceiling is at a 84, 85, JT Tuimoloau's ceiling is going to be a 90, 95 maybe. So yeah, just a guy that didn't necessarily produce up until this year. I mean, of course, he was getting like 4 or 5 sacks, but I think his freshman year was a game he had like 4 sacks or 5 sacks and an interception, forced fumble. Like, he went crazy against whoever it was, and guys were like, oh, that's going to be a first-round pick. We were kind of waiting on him to break out. Necessarily didn't break out up until this year. We had like 12.5 sacks, so finally showed up. But really good pass rusher, really high ceiling player, but also a high floor at the same time. So it's a good player at the end of the day. Same thing I said about Jack Sawyer, same range, same kind of role that you want to put him in, but he does have the upside to be an edge one eventually. So yeah, just a really, really good player. Ohio State basically just put out the same guy of different races basically this year. So shout out to him. That's my edge 8 and 9. Both those guys got to be side by side if you ask me. Maybe you could put JT Tuimoloau a spot or 2 above. Maybe Jack Sawyer a spot or 2 above, but they're basically the same player for me. It's like Outkast. You're not going to rank Andre 3000 the best rapper of all time and then have Big Boy out of your top 100. It don't work like that. So let's get into the next player. Now, this next guy, you know, if you follow me, I've been a fan of him for a long time. Princely Umanmielen, out of Ole Miss, formerly of Florida, 6'4", 264. That's his official measurements at the Senior Bowl. He is a 5th-year senior out of Ole Miss. Dog. This guy is a slender yet still well-built edge rusher. He's going to be a good run defender, not good, great like I was saying with Jack Sawyer and them, but a good run defender. He's going to be able to stand up, stay stout in his run defense, maybe knife in, make a couple of plays in the backfield. But his bend at the size that he is nuts. He has such long strides that he's able to get around to the tackle. But like, he's not necessarily your speed guy where he's bursting off the edge, even though he has good speed off the edge. He's not like flying past guys, but because he has good speed plus with the long strides he has, he's kind of long 2-3 stepping around the corner out of the tackle. And it hurts guys a lot, and he's able to bend and get up under those guys. Really good. You put him in a wide 9 as your edge 2, maybe your low end edge 1 eventually, but first year as your edge 2, and you just let him go from a wide 9, and you have a much stronger, powerful guy on the opposite side, you feel me? He could be really, really good. I could see him being a 7 to 10 sack guy at the next level at his height, maybe even 11, 12 sack guy. Still a good run defender. He's a really good player to me, and he has a lot of moves. I talked to him. He said he models his game after Von Miller, which I can see somewhat where he's getting at with his bend and things like that. But I think he's much, like I mentioned before, much more like Clowney. And he also said, yeah, that's another comp that I have for myself. But just good, really good run defender, high end edge 2, low end edge 1. You see, he was edge 1/2 in Baltimore, edge 1 for the Panthers last year. And it didn't really work out because the defense sucked. But in Baltimore, you see how good he was. So yeah, I'm not gonna get an eval out on him because SEC copyright. It's not gonna work. So just take it from me. He's gonna be a really, really polished pass rusher coming out. Really good run defender. Another high floor player to me. But his ceiling is a little bit lower than a JT Tuimoloau's. I probably could have put Tuimoloau above him, but I like Princely a lot. I think he's going to be a great player coming in year 1. Maybe get you 4 to 6 sacks in year 1, maybe even more. So, really good player. Edge 7. I wish I could have him higher on the list because one of my favorite guys in this class, but it doesn't work. I could see him being a 2nd round to 3rd round guy, maybe sneaking into the back end of the 1st. But yeah, same range as those other 2 guys, basically. Really good player, though. Really, really good player. So let's get into our edge 6. Now, I don't know how unpopular this is going to be because he's got a lot of fans. Especially recently. But my edge 6 is going to be Shamar Stewart. Kind of the same reasons as Michael Williams at edge 10. Really high ceiling because of the athletic tools. He's 6'5", 281, true junior out of Texas A&M. So he may be 20, 21 years old, I want to say. He played all over at Texas A&M. He played from a 5 technique, wide 9, into a 3, 4-eye. He's played nose for full games. So he can play everywhere, and he's held up from everywhere. elite run defender because of his tools and his strength, his size, the ways he's able to just move guys around and bully them. I've seen guys talk about how Jared Verse translated at the next level, where he's just so much stronger, faster, and more physical than everybody, and he's able to just win like that. Shamar Stewart's the same way, but he doesn't necessarily finish plays at the level that you want a guy to finish plays. And when I talk to him, he talks about that's one thing that he has to fix. He has to be a better finisher. And you've seen it at the college level. He had 1.5 sacks every single year. Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, goes into the NFL draft. So he doesn't have the pass rush production from a sack standpoint. But you still see a lot more wins on tape, a lot more flashes on tape. Let me not say moves, because I still don't think he has a lot of moves when I watch him, but a lot more flashes on tape than when you're watching Mykel Williams. So I could see the floor being a little bit higher for him as a pass rusher, just being so much more dominant than everybody, but still having those flashes of moves versus Mykel Williams. And his ceiling, I think, is a lot higher to me, because I think he's a much more of an athletic freak than Mykel Williams is. So that's going to move him into my edge 6 spot. Really good player though. I'm sorry I don't have any tape on him. Still a good player. I could see him going very high in the draft. Would I take him very high in the draft? I'm not sure. If you have a staff that's really good at developing talent, especially edge rushers, if I'm the Rams and I had a top 10 pick, I would have Shamar Stewart 1 or 2 on my board. If I'm the Rams board, because they're obviously very good at developing defensive line. Maybe the Panthers have him high on their board now that they took the assistant D-line coach from the Rams, and he's their outside linebacker coach who's going to be coaching up those edges. Maybe he's high on their board. It's interesting to see. He does have to get better at let me make this clear too. And it's not necessarily that he's not winning. He is winning. He has to get better at finishing the play. So it's not the same as Mykel Williams, where I'm like, he's not winning as much. He's winning a good amount also. Let me say that. A good amount for Shamar Stewart that he's winning. He just has to get better at finishing the plays. And I still want to see a lot more pass rush moves added to his moveset, because it's not many. And that's kind of what I grade highly on when it comes to these guys. So shout out to Shamar Stewart. He's an interesting prospect. He can go up and down this board based off his combine. I think if he has a nasty combine, he can maybe go up to edge 4, maybe for me, depending on, what type of team you are. But I don't know if I see him cracking the top 3. But yeah, edge 6, really good player. Let's move on. Now my edge 5. This is a guy that some people think I don't like. I don't know why. I like this guy. I like James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, 6'5", 243. He's a true junior from Charlotte, actually, from same city I'm from. I like him a lot, actually. He's a really good player to me. I think he's one of those high ceiling prospects. Once again, to me, I don't see a lot of pass rush moves. I see good first step, good quickness around the edge, not as much bend. I think he's a lot more stiffer than a lot of people kind of note. I don't see this elite bend from him, but he's so fast around the edge. He's so fast with his first step. He's just beating guys. And we've seen it with Jared Verse. He's much stronger, faster than everybody. He's went to the next level. The strength isn't necessarily there for James Pierce as it was for Jared Verse. He's still a strong guy. He's just not like overpowering everybody and just winning with all athleticism all the ways around. He's winning with athleticism just based off his speed. Now, when you get into the NFL and tackles have much better technique and they're able to get into the quick step better and things like that, much more refined, you're not going to just be able to run around guys. Simple as that. Especially if you're not a, what's the guy from Miami that I loved last year that plays for Miami? He was out of Penn State. This is the second video where I tried to bring him up and I could not remember his name. God dang. And it's going to kill me that I can't remember his name. Whatever. Unless you're that guy. He's not that guy. He's not that first step. He doesn't have the bend that guy had either. He's not as fast as that guy, but he has a much better build and frame. Like I said, 6'5". He is a decent run defender, good stout run defender. Like, he's on the same level as Princely Umamiele in run defense, if you ask me. But I need to see more pass rush moves added to his personnel or his arsenal. But the difference between him and Shamar Stewart, why I have him above Shamar Stewart, he's actually winning. He's actually producing. I think he had 8.5 sacks this year. I think he had like 10 last year. His freshman year, I think he had like 3 or 4. He's produced. So, and you see him when you look at these charts. I'm not much of a, I can look at some charts. I'm not much of a, hey, this chart means this guy is this. No, because it's a lot more nuanced than that. But when you look at the charts and things like that, you see his pass rush win rate is towards the top of this class and top of the last couple classes historically. But I do want to see him improve his moveset. So still a very good player. I think he could be flip-flop from edge 4 to edge 6 to me. I don't think he's going any lower than those two. Right in the middle of edge 5 is a pretty good standpoint. Now, let me talk about another guy right quick while we're on James Pierce. Out of Georgia, who's not going to be on this list because I think they said that the NFL sees him much more as a hybrid linebacker instead of a full-time edge. But what's bro name? Jalen Walker out of Georgia, a guy that I was really high on. He would have been in this same spot, edge 5 to me. So he would have bumped Pierce down 1. Him and Pierce could flip-flop to me, but I do think that Pierce has a much better frame, so it's like, hey, he probably has a higher ceiling because of that. But I do think that Jalen Walker has more pass rush moves in his tool set, but he's a much smaller guy. It's interesting to see the difference between the two. Smaller frame, better pass rush moves or arsenal versus much bigger frame, not as much pass rush moves in arsenal, but still a high ceiling to add that. But yeah, this is where he would have been for me if I had him in the edge rankings. He's probably going to be on the linebacker rankings because that's how the NFL sees him according to people. So yeah, somewhere around here. But let's get into the next guy who's kind of going to be a hot take. Donovan Ezaraku. Ezzy, he's going to be my edge 4. That's why I call him Ezzy. I feel like that's just easier to say for some people. But Donovan Ezaraku, edge 4. Seen him at the Senior Bowl. Fell in love with his game. I liked him before that, but seeing it up close in person, because I only had 2 games of tape. Still only have 2 games of tape. I'm trying to get more so I can get a full eval out on him. But from what I've seen so far at the Senior Bowl, plus the 2 games, or maybe 3 games I've seen, I like to do 5. He's going to be probably my edge 4. You can flip-flop. I think these guys are all in the same tier. Shamar Stewart, James Pierce, Donovan Ezaraku, all in the same tier. He's going to be a 4th-year senior, though, out of Boston College. He's only 6'2", but he has super-duper long arms. I think he has like 34-inch or 35-inch arms, or close to 35-inch if it's not there. 248 pounds, so he's close to 250 already, so he's kind of built well enough to hold up in the run game. And at the Senior Bowl, he did well holding his anchor and things like that, knifing in, making plays, blowing up plays. He's going to be, I think, an average run defender, maybe above average at best, and that's all you need, to be honest. But he might be an elite pass rusher at the next level. The reason I say this is his athleticism. What he told me is how he studies guys and watches tape so he can know their weaknesses going into the game, and he can counter that. Usually guys develop that in the game. They start seeing, hey, if I do this, he does this, da-da-da. He has it before he gets into the game, and it shows why he was able to get 16.5 sacks this year. And I think he has like the school record, or tied for the school record for most sacks or something like that, and tied for like 3rd or 2nd in the ACC for most sacks all time. Really good player though. And he's just so advanced as a pass rusher. The amount of pass rushing moves he has is disgusting. He has a cross chop, which is, I think, the most advanced and hardest move to use as a pass rusher. That's an elite move. That's an elite trait that you have. He has that in his bag. He has a double swipe with his hands. He has clubs. He has spin moves. He's able to counter inside if he needs to with the speed that he has. And his bend may be the best in the class. It's between him, Mike Green is kind of pound for pound bend, but just overall, just being how low he's getting, it's between him and Abdul. Just a really, really bendy player. I've seen him like literally make tackles miss their hands with how low he's bending, and they're just like falling on their face. So really, really, really advanced pass rusher already. I want to say he's like 21, 22 years old. Very high ceiling, if you ask me. If you get a guy that this advanced already, this much athleticism that he has, the bend and speed that he has, maybe put 5 more pounds on him, get him to 253, 255, somewhere in there, and hopefully that doesn't take away from his bend and speed and things like that. And you get already super advanced with the moves. You start adding stuff and getting better counters and things like that. Speed to power. Whoo! This guy might be another 14 sack guy in the league. This is going to be like your bounty hunter pass rusher. Maybe you don't want him on there for all 4 downs, all 3 downs, early at least. But eventually, I think you'll be able to get him. Like Brian Burns was able to survive He's been a decent run defender, pretty good run defender, especially this past year. I think he could be similar to Brian Burns in run defense. Hopefully he can be better, but I think he could be a much better pass rusher than he was. That's kind of one of the comps I have for him, but we'll get a full eval out on him. That's kind of his mid-level comp, I think, because I think this guy could be a 10 to 15 sack guy at his best, maybe even more, because he's just so advanced coming in. So many counters, so many pass rush moves. Really, really good player. It's going to be my edge 4. I don't see him going any higher than this. But I would love him in somewhere in the first round. It's interesting. Very interesting, because I don't think he would be a top 10 pick. But if you get him in the top 20 and back, 15 and back, I think you're getting a really, really good player. So let's get into my edge 3 now. Now, my edge 3 is a guy that I recently just did a full eval on. Probably won't do a video because, once again, SEC. But I watched 5-6 games of him. Only 2 of those games were at Purdue. Now, let me say this. For Nick Scorton, who's my edge 3, he has, at the combine, the ability to go maybe 1 spot up above Mike Green, who's my edge 2. I kind of just spoiled it. Or go down a couple spots to where Shamar Stewart is edge 5. I don't think so, though, because from what my understanding was, he had a down year at Texas A&M, which it seems like Texas A&M is just where you go to not necessarily produce, like Georgia or something, because you see Walter Nolan, he left, got much better. You see Shamar Stewart didn't produce at all. Nick Scorton went from being a 10-sack guy at Purdue to getting 5 sacks. So, interesting, but whatever. Nick Scorton, 6'4", 285, true junior, or is he a redshirt junior? One of the two. Really, really good player, man. Went to Purdue at first, played in the Big Ten, was able to rack up 10 sacks playing in that 3-4 defense, stand-up, 2-point pass rusher. Caused a lot of problems for Ohio State, Michigan in those games. He was able to pin his ears back and go get after it. The best thing about him, he has so much agility for the size that he has. He has this patented spin move that he loves using, even when it don't work. He's just always using that spin move. But he also has the power to just run through guys and push guys into the back of the quarterback, or just simply flatten guys. So yeah, he doesn't have crazy bend, but he has good enough bend to swipe and get around the edge with speed if he needs to. I've seen him attempt some cross chops. They weren't as clean and as successful as a guy like Donovan Zaraku, who is a much better athlete, but they were successful. He was able to get to the quarterback, disturb the quarterback, even get a sack or 2 off of the cross chop. So you love the pass rush bag and the polish that he had at Purdue. Then you go to Texas A&M and you're like, all right, what's going on? To me, I think it was the same guy. They just weren't letting him pin his ears back as much. There was plenty of times at Purdue where he's always dropping in coverage. I didn't necessarily like that as much. But Texas A&M, they're putting him in like this 4-point stance and a 4-eye, asking him kind of to read the run first and then go. But in games like Missouri, when he was able to just pin his, not Missouri somewhat, but Arkansas, that's the game I'm thinking of. Games like Arkansas, he's able to pin his ears back. He looked like the same guy. I see him doing cross chops, double swipes to get around, spin moves. I think he had 2 sacks in that game. He looks like the same guy. And some people were talking about, hey, maybe he added weight to play that 4-eye technique and it slowed him down with the athleticism. Maybe. But I couldn't tell in that Arkansas and Missouri game. He looked really, really good. In the Notre Dame game, I was like, yeah, this don't look like the same guy. But those 3 games in the LSU game somewhat, he looked like an even better player to me, because at Purdue, I felt like his motor was not as high. Just not a high motor player from what I've seen. The 2 games I watched at Purdue, which is Michigan, and I forgot the other game. His motor didn't seem that high. He was kind of a, hey, my initial rush doesn't win. I'm going to look and see where the quarterback's at and jog. Or maybe if the quarterback's in realm, I'll go get him. But, hey, this initial rush better win. Texas A&M, he was a lot more relentless, especially in that Arkansas game. He was going to get after him, dog. He had a really, really high motor. So I thought he was going to be towards the edge 6-7 realm because of his production. Just looking at the box score, that's why you can't watch it. And based off what other people say, that's why you can't go what everybody says. You got to watch your own tape. But I still think he's edge 3. Depending on what he does at the combine, he's edge 2. I think this could be your Jared Verse. Because it seems like everybody's trying to find this Jared Verse where he's just bigger, stronger, and faster than everybody and run around guys. This could be him, but he's a lot better of a pass rusher when it comes to polish. Maybe not a better, because Jared Verse is pretty polished too, but polished versus the other guys that they're comparing him to. So really good player, still going to be my edge 3. I could see him going top 15, maybe not 10, but top 15, 11, 12, 13, somewhere and back. Once you get into the 25s, this is a steal. If he falls into the second round, which seems like it's possible based on like Daniel Jeremiah's mocks and things like that, this is a steal. This is also still a really good run defender. We see he's really stout. So yeah, he's gonna be my edge 3. He was my edge 1 coming into the year. Then him and Abdul, who's obviously edge 1, we only gotta say is spoiled, but that was my edge 1, and then Abdul was edge 2. Then it flopped. I'm like, all right, Abdul was edge 1, then Nick Gordon's edge 2. Then, you know, he kind of fell down, you know, got washed out, not as producing as much, but still gonna be my edge 3 in this class. Really, really good player. Let's get into the top 2 guys. Edge 2, I'm not gonna spend too much time on him. I got a full eval on it. It's got a lot of views too, so if you want to see my real thoughts on Mike Green, go watch the edge. Go watch his breakdown. It's a full breakdown up on YouTube. I have it linked in the end of this video. 6'3", 251. That's his official measurables from the Senior Bowl. He is a senior. I want to say a 5th-year senior too from Marshall. Really bendy player. Really strong player. Really great build. He's explosive off the edge with very good bend. Pound for pound, just based off how he's built, might be the second best or most bendiest player in this class. Good pass rush refinement with counters, things like that. Overall, a really good player. I think he had like 18 or 17 and a half sacks this year. Just really good. So if you want to see my full thoughts on Mike Green, go watch that video. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about him here. I already did it before. So let's get into the next guy. Edge 1. Edge 1, it should be no surprise who it is. Abdul Carter. This is his measurables, which I think is cap. Like I said, these guys be listed wrong all the time. 6'3", 259. I'm calling cap. If Mike Green's only 251 and what's the name? Donovan Ezeraku was 248. I don't think this guy is 260, but maybe he is. Maybe he's just carrying his weight different, which is possible. But true junior out of Penn State University, Abdul Carter. We seen the comps. Maybe I'll do a full eval on him. I don't know. We'll see. Definitely a guy I could get an eval out on, but very, very explosive, bendy player. His speed is elite. Simple as that. He's these Penn State guys. I mean, those guys that are super duper athletic. Chop Robinson is who I was thinking of earlier, but he's these Penn State guys, these super duper athletic, uber talented athletes that don't necessarily have as much polish, which is nuts because I mean, you look at guys like Chop Robinson, not as super polished coming out. Micah Parsons, not as super polished coming out, but they're super duper athletic. They win with that bend and athleticism and speed. Abdul Carter might be faster and bendier than both of those guys. Now, he's much slender of a player versus those two guys, but Abdul Carter was an off-ball linebacker, kind of like how Micah Parsons was. And then he switched to edge. I don't think Micah Parsons ever switched to edge at Penn State full time, but he switched to edge this year and simply dominated. He was the engine of that defense damn near because you could not block him no matter what. There was no taking him out of games. And he's okay in the run game. He's maybe average to above average in the run game. But he's kind of like how I said for Donovan Ezeraku, he's going to be such a dominant pass rusher. You're going to take average to above average in the run game. It does not matter. I think this is an elite pass rusher. Would be edge 1 or 2 in a lot of classes. Maybe the last 3-4 classes will still be your edge 1 or 2 regardless. So really, really elite, shifty, bendy player. Still very, very, very unpolished though, because he just started playing this year. So you get him somewhere that's able to develop those guys and develop that talent. He could be a top 5 to 4, maybe even the best, maybe not the best, but a top 5 edge rusher in the league in 2-3 years if you get him in the right place. I just think of places like the Rams, who are just so good at developing talent, you know, with that coaching staff. But yeah, or the Cowboys maybe, because, you know, they was able to develop Micah Parsons. But yeah, you get him somewhere like that, and he's going to be an elite player, and he might be an elite player day one, like how Will McDonald for the Texans that kind of stepped in and immediately produced with 8.5 or 10 sacks, something like that. I could see that being Abdul Carter, just how explosive, bendy, and speedy he is, and how much he's unrefined but still able to produce. It's nasty because even at off-ball linebacker, I think he had like 5.5 sacks. So yeah, just overall, just the best edge player in this class, undisputed. There shouldn't be anybody above him, to be honest. But yeah, that's all I got for y'all. So if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'm going to have a lot more rankings videos coming out, maybe pre and post combine. Still going to do some evals, but a lot of the guys I want to hit on are either in the SEC or I've already hit on them. So yeah, we'll see how much we can do. We'll get some free agency content up soon. But yeah, comment, let me know who you think I was a snub. Who do you think I had too low? Who do you think I'm way too high on? Because I'm sure it's going to be a guy, number 4, that people are like, nah, you're tripping. Like, he's not that good. But yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I'm out. I'll see y'all next week.